My sister pilfered my identity, acquired cards, and racked up $78,000 debt. My parents insisted. Just pardon her, she's blood. I lodged a police report. At her hearing, my parents arrived to speak against me. A judge's query made my mother weep. Can you imagine watching your own mother break down in tears in a courtroom? Not because she felt a shred of remorse for the $78,000 my sister stole from me, but because a judge dared to ask her one question she couldn't answer. It was a moment of absolute, bone-deep vindication, but it ripped my family apart. What would you have done if your own parents stood there, under oath, and tried to paint you as the villain? Let me take you back to just 4 weeks before that moment, to a Tuesday morning that shattered everything I thought I knew about my family. My phone buzzed with a notification, and in an instant, my entire world started to unravel. See, I'm Opal. I'm 27, and I've always been good with numbers. That's why I became a staff accountant. It's why I track every single dollar, every purchase, every cent that leaves my checking account. And it's why, at 27, I had a credit score of 780 and a down payment saved for my first apartment. My studio? It was tiny, like 400 square feet of beige carpet and a window that faced a parking lot. But it was mine. Paid for with my own money. No help from anyone. That's just how it's always been for me. Growing up, I was the easy child. My older sister, Brianna, she was 4 years my senior, and she always needed attention. Reassurance. Help. She was the one my parents constantly worried about. Brianna's sensitive, Mom would say. She feels things more deeply than you do, Opal. I learned pretty early that if I asked for something, it meant taking away from Brianna. So, I just stopped asking. I paid my own way through college, scholarships, part-time jobs, ramen noodles for dinner 3 nights a week. Brianna? Mom and Dad covered her tuition, her apartment, her car insurance until she was 25. I never complained. What was the point? You're so independent, Opal. Dad once told me, like it was a compliment. Like I'd chosen this life instead of having it forced upon me. I didn't know then that my independence made me the perfect target. I didn't know that my silence, my self-sufficiency, my endless capacity to just handle things alone, all of it had been noted, catalogued, weaponized against me. But I'm getting ahead of myself. 4 weeks ago, I still believed that family meant something. That blood was thicker than betrayal. I was about to learn how wrong I was. A couple of months before all hell broke loose, we had a family dinner at my parents' house. It was Brianna's idea. She'd been posting about reconnecting with family on Instagram, and Mom just ate it up. I drove 45 minutes after work to be there, brought a bottle of wine, even set the table without being asked. When Brianna finally walked in, late of course, Mom practically ran to hug her. "Oh my God, is that a new bag?" Mom's eyes just lit up at Brianna's designer purse. I recognized it. Coach. Had to be at least $500. "Honey, you shouldn't be spending like that if you're struggling," Mom worried. Brianna just smiled, tossing her blonde hair over her shoulder. "Don't worry, Mom. I've got it handled." Nobody asked where I got my bag. Nobody asked about anything I was doing. During dinner, the entire conversation orbited around Brianna. Her job at the boutique, her new apartment, her dating life. Mom leaned in, concerned. "Do you have enough for rent this month, sweetheart?" I tried to chime in once. "I'm actually saving for a down payment on an apartment. Should be ready to buy in a few months." Mom nodded absently. "That's nice, honey. Opal, can you clear the plates?" Later, Brianna cornered me in the kitchen. "Hey, can I borrow your laptop real quick? I need to check my email. My phone's almost dead." "Sure." I handed it over without even thinking. She disappeared into the living room for 20 minutes. I didn't think anything of it. Why would I? She was my sister. I didn't know she was scrolling through my saved documents, my cloud storage, that folder I'd stupidly labeled important documents. I didn't know that dinner was reconnaissance. But I'd figure that out soon enough. I should tell you about the time Brianna and I lived together. 3 years ago, right after I graduated, she needed a roommate, and I needed cheap rent. It just made sense. For 8 months, we shared a 2-bedroom apartment in Tempe. And because she was my sister, because I trusted her completely, I never hid anything. She saw my mail, my bank statements, even my social security card when I was filling out paperwork for my new job. "What's your social?" she'd asked once, casually, while I was sorting through documents on the couch. "Why?" I asked. "Oh, I'm updating the emergency contact info on my phone plan. Want to add you." I rattled off the 9 digits without hesitation. She's my sister, I thought. What's she going to do? Commit identity theft? There were other moments, too. Small ones? Easy to forget. "Hey, what was our old address? The one on Mill Avenue? I need it for a background check." "What's Mom's maiden name again? I always forget." "When's your birthday? I want to send you something." I answered every question. Handed over every single piece of information she asked for. Because that's what family does, right? You don't keep secrets from your own blood. I was building her a key, one piece at a time, and I didn't even know there was a lock. 3 years later, I was about to find out exactly what she'd done with all those little details, all those innocent questions. My phone was about to buzz. A notification was about to pop up. And my entire life was about to collapse like a house of cards built on the lie that my sister would never hurt me. It was 7:42 a.m. on a Tuesday. The notification popped up while I was brushing my teeth. "Credit score alert. Your score has changed." I almost ignored it. My credit score never changed. I paid everything on time, kept my utilization low, did all the boring, responsible things that nobody ever thanks you for. But something made me tap it. The number that loaded made me drop my toothbrush. 412, that couldn't be right. 3 months ago, I was at 780. You don't drop 368 points from a late payment or a hard inquiry. That kind of drop means something catastrophic. My hands were shaking when I pulled up the full credit report. 7 credit cards I'd never opened. 2 personal loans I'd never applied for. All in my name, all maxed out or defaulted. Total debt, $78,147. I sat down on the edge of my bathtub because my legs just wouldn't hold me anymore. Capital One, Discover, Chase, American Express. Names I recognized, accounts I'd never seen. The oldest one had been open for 18 months. I called the first number I could find. My voice didn't sound like mine. "There has to be a mistake. I've never opened a Capital One card in my life." The silence on the other end lasted too long. "Ma'am, we show 7 accounts under your social security number, all in good standing until 2 months ago. Would you like me to read you the billing addresses on file?" "Yes." She read an address. My parents' address. The room started spinning. "Ma'am, are you still there?" I was there. But the person I'd been 5 minutes ago, the one who believed in her family, she was already gone. 5 years. That's how long I'd been saving for a down payment. 5 years of 60-hour weeks. 5 years of saying no to vacations, no to concerts, no to the little luxuries that make life feel less like mere survival. I'd been pre-approved for a mortgage just last week. The real estate agent had already sent me 3 listings. One had a balcony, a real balcony, not a fire escape someone stuck a plant on. I called her that afternoon. Her voice went from warm to awkward in seconds. "Opal, I don't know how to tell you this. The lender pulled your updated credit report this morning. They've rescinded the pre-approval. There's been a mistake." I choked out. "I'm fixing it. I'm sorry," she said, her voice dripping with pity. "They won't work with a score below 620, and yours is 412. Silence. "I'm so sorry, Opal." I hung up before she could say anything else. The apartment with a balcony was gone. The future I'd been building, brick by careful brick, had crumbled overnight. Not because I made a mistake. Not because I was irresponsible. Because someone decided my future was theirs to take. I pulled up the credit card statements online, the ones I could access with enough security questions and hold times. The transactions painted a picture: Nordstrom, Sephora, a resort in Sedona, first-class airfare to Las Vegas, a spa weekend in Scottsdale. 18 months of luxury. Someone had been living very well on my name. And every single charge, every single bill, every single default, it all traced back to one IP address. My parents' house. I knew who lived there. I knew who always needed money. I knew who had asked me for my social security number 3 years ago. But I still didn't want to believe it. I spent that night on my laptop, cross-referencing every transaction with every piece of evidence I could find. The timeline was damning. A charge at Nordstrom on March 15th. Brianna's Instagram post the next day. New cashmere sweater. #treat yourself. A booking at a Sedona resort in June. Her stories from that weekend. Champagne by the pool, canyon views, living my best life. She hadn't even tried to hide it. Why would she? She never expected me to find out. But the transaction that broke something inside me, truly shattered it, was dated September 23rd. My birthday. A $300 charge at the Gucci store in Scottsdale. I scrolled through Brianna's Instagram until I found it. A photo from September 24th. Her new designer bag gleaming in the Arizona sun. Sometimes you just have to treat yourself. The caption read, followed by a heart emoji and a shopping bag emoji. Living my best life. She'd bought herself a Gucci bag on my birthday, with money attached to my name. Money I'd be legally responsible for. I sat in my car in my apartment parking lot for an hour. The engine was off. The windows were up. The Arizona heat was suffocating. But I couldn't move. Part of me wanted to be wrong. Part of me was already making excuses. Maybe she was desperate. Maybe she planned to pay it back. Maybe this was some misunderstanding I'd laugh about later. The other part looked at that Gucci bag and felt something I'd never felt toward my sister before. Rage. I had two choices: pretend I didn't see it and pay for my sister's lifestyle for the next decade, or make the call that would tear my family apart. I started the car. I drove to my parents' house. Brianna's car was in the driveway when I pulled up. Of course it was. I didn't knock. I used my key. The one Mom insisted I keep. For emergencies. This felt like an emergency. She was in the living room, scrolling through her phone on the couch I'd helped my parents pick out 3 Christmases ago. She looked up when I walked in, surprised but not alarmed. Opal, what are you doing here? I didn't sit. Didn't take off my shoes. Just stood in the doorway and asked the question that had been burning a hole in my chest for the past 6 hours. Brianna, did you open credit cards in my name? Her face went through 3 expressions in 2 seconds: confusion, recognition, practiced innocence. What? That's insane. Why would I do that? The IP address is this house. The billing address is this house. The purchases match your Instagram posts. She blinked, set down her phone, stood up slowly. Okay, fine. Her voice shifted, harder now, defensive. But I was going to pay it back. $78,000. You don't understand how hard things have been for me. You bought a Gucci bag on my birthday. My voice was a low growl. You have a stable job. I have nothing. You could have helped me, but you never offered. I stared at her. This woman I'd shared a room with as a child, shared secrets with, defended to friends who said she seemed selfish. I didn't offer because you didn't ask. You just took. It's not stealing if it's family. She spat. I heard footsteps behind me. Mom's voice, sharp with concern. What's going on, Brianna? Why are you yelling? And just like that, the real confrontation began. Mom swept into the room in her gardening apron, dirt still on her gloves. Dad followed a few steps behind, cautious as always. What's all this noise about? Brianna was already crying. I hadn't even seen the switch happen, but there it was. Tears streaming down her face, voice wobbling like a child's. Opal's accusing me of stealing. I'm not accusing, I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. I'm stating facts. Mom turned to me, her expression already hardening. Opal, what exactly is going on? I explained. The credit cards, the loans, the $78,000, the IP address, the transactions that matched Brianna's lifestyle like puzzle pieces clicking into place. Mom listened. Then she looked at Brianna. Brianna, is this true? A sob. A nod. I waited. For the outrage. The shock. How could you? Instead, Mom turned back to me. Can't you just help her fix this quietly? The words hit me like a slap. Mom, she stole my identity. She didn't steal anything, she borrowed without my permission for 18 months. She's your sister. She ruined my credit. I lost my apartment. Credit can be fixed. There will be other apartments. I looked at Dad. He was standing in the corner, arms crossed, staring at a point on the wall somewhere above my head. Dad? He flinched. Didn't meet my eyes. Your mother's right, Opal. We should handle this as a family. No need to make it bigger than it is. Brianna sniffled from the couch. Mom went to sit beside her, rubbing her back. I stood alone in my parents' living room, watching them comfort my sister, the thief, the one who'd spent 18 months living off my name. And I realized I'd never been part of this family at all. I tried one last time. I owed myself that much. Fine, I said. You don't want me to go to the police, then help me fix this. A payment plan. You, Dad, and Brianna signed something official. A repayment agreement. We get it notarized. Brianna pays back the money over time. I don't press charges. It was more than fair. It was generous. We don't have that kind of money, Mom said. I'm not asking for a lump sum. I'm asking for accountability. Brianna's tears had stopped. She was watching me now, with something cold in her eyes. I can't sign anything legal, she said. What if I can't make the payments? You'd sue me? You already owe me $78,000. I'm trying to keep this out of court. Silence. Dad shifted his weight. Mom's hand stilled on Brianna's back. So, your solution, I said slowly, is that I pay for Brianna's crimes out of my own pocket for the next decade? Mom sighed, like I was being dramatic. You'll figure it out, Opal. You always do. Those 6 words. You'll figure it out. You always do. The mantra of my entire childhood. The excuse they'd used every time they chose Brianna over me. The reason I'd spent my whole life being self-sufficient. Because I knew, even as a kid, that no one was coming to save me. I looked at my mother, at my father, who still wouldn't meet my eyes, at my sister, already checking her phone like this conversation was boring her. And I made my decision. You're right, I said, picking up my keys. I will figure it out. Just not the way you want me to. I walked out without looking back. Pause, voice dropped slightly, more reflective. Okay, let me pause here for a second. I want to ask you something. Because at that moment, standing in my parents' living room, realizing no one was going to help me, what would you have done? Would you have walked away and paid the debt yourself to keep the peace? Or would you have done what I did next? Drop your answer in the comments. A for keep the peace, or B for take action. And if you're still with me, hit that subscribe button, because what happens next? Even I didn't see it coming. The next morning, I told Marcus. Marcus Reeves worked 2 cubicles down from me. Corporate law wasn't his specialty. He mostly handled contracts and compliance. But he passed the bar, and right now, he was the closest thing I had to legal counsel. We sat in the break room during lunch. I laid it all out, the credit cards, the loans, the family meeting, my parents' refusal to help. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he set down his coffee. Opal, this isn't a family dispute. This is identity theft. A federal crime. I know, I whispered. She could face up to 15 years. My stomach dropped. 15 years? That's the maximum. Realistically, first offense, she'd probably get probation and restitution. But you have every right to press charges. She's my sister. And she treated you like an ATM. He leaned forward. I've seen this before. People who steal from family count on one thing: that family won't report them. The moment you file that report, you take that power away. What if I'm wrong? What if there's an explanation? Is there? I thought about the IP address, the billing address, the Instagram posts, the Gucci bag purchased on my birthday. No. Then you're not wrong. He pulled out his phone, typed something, slid it across the table. Phoenix Police Department, Financial Crimes Unit. And you'll want to file an FTC complaint too. They handle identity theft. He pointed to the number. Everything you need is already in writing. The credit reports, the IP address, the transaction history. The police will subpoena the rest. You don't have to prove anything yourself. I saved the number. I didn't call it that day. But I didn't delete it either. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept scrolling through old text conversations with Brianna. Years of messages, birthday wishes, memes, random updates about nothing. And then, I started noticing patterns. 3 years ago, right after we stopped being roommates. Hey, what's your old address? The one on Mill Avenue? I need it for a background check. I'd sent it without question. 2.5 years ago. Do you remember Mom's maiden name? I forgot. And I need it for some form. I'd replied. Williams. Why? Just some bank thing. Thanks, sis. 2 years ago. What's your birthday again? I want to send you something. She knew my birthday. She'd been to 25 of them. But I'd typed it out anyway. September 23rd. And then, 18 months ago, 1 week before the first fraudulent credit card was opened. Hey, can you send me your SSN? I want to add you to the family phone plan. I scrolled to my response. 9 digits. Sent with a heart emoji. There you go. Thanks for adding me. There it was, in writing. The moment I handed my sister the key to my entire financial identity, and didn't even realize it. Security questions, previous addresses, mother's maiden name, social security number. She'd been collecting pieces of me for years, patiently, methodically, waiting for the moment when she needed them. I stared at that text message for 20 minutes. I'd send it. Me. I gave her my social security number because she asked nicely and I trusted her. How do you press charges against someone for using exactly what you handed them? You do it because what they did with it was a crime. I picked up my phone and dialed the number Marcus gave me. The Financial Crimes Unit was smaller than I expected. 3 desks, fluorescent lights, a water cooler that gurgled in the corner. Detective Angela Ford was in her early 40s, with short, gray-streaked hair and the kind of tired eyes that had seen too many of these cases. She listened as I walked her through everything: the credit report, the transactions, the text messages, the family meeting. When I finished, she nodded slowly. This is a clear case, Miss Carter. We'll open an investigation. How long will it take? A few weeks to gather evidence. We'll subpoena records, trace the IP addresses, verify the signatures on the applications. She looked at me. Are you prepared for what happens next? What do you mean? I mean, your sister will be arrested. She'll be charged. This will go to court. She paused. Family cases are hard. People change their minds. They don't want to testify. I won't change my mind. I hope not. She handed me a card. Call me if anything happens. And Miss Carter, you did the right thing. I walked out of the police station feeling lighter and heavier at the same time. That evening, I called my parents. I owed them that much. I filed a police report today, I said, against Brianna. The silence lasted 3 seconds. Then Mom exploded. You did what? I had no choice. You're sending your sister to prison. I'm reporting a crime. She's family. She stole $78,000 from me. We raised you better than this. You raised me to be taken advantage of. Mom's voice went cold. If you don't drop those charges, Opal, you are no longer welcome in this family. The line went dead. I sat in my car and cried for the first time in 4 years. 3 days later, I got a text from Dad. Family meeting Sunday, 2 p.m., please come. I almost didn't go. But some part of me, the stupid, hopeful part that still believed in redemption, thought maybe they'd changed their minds. Maybe they'd realized how wrong they'd been. I was wrong about being wrong. When I walked into my parents' living room, it wasn't just Mom, Dad, and Brianna waiting for me. My aunts and uncles were there. My grandmother. A tribunal. That's what this was. Sit down, Opal, Mom said. Her voice was ice. I stayed standing. Mom rose from the couch. Opal needs to explain to everyone why she's trying to destroy this family. Aunt Carol spoke first. Brianna made a mistake, Opal. We all make mistakes. Uncle Pete chimed in. You're going to ruin her life over money? Money can be replaced. Grandma June, shaking her head, added, In my day, families handled things privately. This is shameful. I looked around the room. 12 people. Not one on my side. Brianna sat in the armchair by the window, tears streaming down her face. Mom's hand on her shoulder. The victim. The fragile one. The daughter worth protecting. Look at her, Mom said, pointing. Look at what you're doing to your sister. I did look. I saw a 31-year-old woman who had spent 18 months stealing from me without a second thought. Who had bought designer bags and spa weekends and first-class flights while I worked 60-hour weeks. I'm not destroying this family, I said, my voice cutting through the pity. Brianna did that 18 months ago when she decided my identity was hers to use. I'm just the one who found out. No one responded. Dad finally spoke. He'd been silent in the corner, arms crossed, staring at the floor. Opal. His voice cracked. Can't you just drop this? For me? For me. Not for justice. Not for what's right. For him. So he wouldn't have to deal with the discomfort of having a daughter who committed a crime and another daughter who refused to be a victim. I looked at him, really looked at him for the first time in years. He seemed smaller than I remembered, older, broken in a way that had nothing to do with me. No, Dad, I said quietly. I can't. Mom stood up. Then we have nothing more to say to each other. If you walk out that door, Opal, don't come back. The room held its breath. 12 pairs of eyes on me. Waiting. I picked up my purse. Walked to the door. Then I turned around one last time. I've spent my whole life being the daughter who didn't need anything. The one who figured things out on her own. The one who never asked for help because I knew it wouldn't come. And I accepted that. My voice was steady, calmer than I felt. But I will not accept paying for a crime I didn't commit just because the criminal shares my last name. I opened the door, stepped through it. Behind me, I heard Mom start to cry. Not the gentle sniffling she'd done for Brianna. This was ugly sobbing. The sound of someone losing control of a narrative they'd been writing for 30 years. I kept walking. I didn't know that would be the last time I'd see my family before the courtroom. And I definitely didn't know they were already planning their next move. 3 weeks of silence. No calls from Mom, no texts from Dad. Brianna blocked me on everything, Instagram, Facebook, even LinkedIn, as if I'd tried to network with her after this. I went to work, came home, checked my credit report obsessively. Waited. Then Detective Ford called. Miss Carter, we have enough to proceed. The DA is pressing charges. I sat down on my kitchen floor because my legs wouldn't hold me. What charges? Identity theft, credit card fraud, mail fraud. She redirected some of your statements to your parents' address. A pause. She's looking at 5 to 15 years if convicted. 15 years? I repeated hollowly. That's the maximum. Realistically, with no prior record, she'll likely get a plea deal, probation, restitution, maybe some community service. Another pause. But there's something else you should know. What? During our investigation, we found another victim. A former roommate of your sister's from about 6 years ago. Same pattern. Credit cards, small loans. She never pressed charges. The floor tilted. I'm not the first. No. You're just the first one who didn't stay quiet. I closed my eyes. All those years of thinking I was special. The trusted sister. The one Brianna would never hurt. I wasn't special. I was just next in line. There's an arraignment scheduled for next Thursday. Detective Ford continued. You'll receive a summons as a material witness. I have to testify eventually? Yes, but the arraignment is just the formal reading of charges. You don't have to speak. You just have to be there. I thanked her and hung up. Next Thursday. In 7 days, I would sit in a courtroom and watch my sister answer for what she did. I wasn't ready, but I'd be there anyway. The Maricopa County Superior Courthouse was all sharp angles and fluorescent lights. I'd worn my most professional outfit, a navy blazer, white blouse, hair pulled back. Armor. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood paneling, hard benches, a seal of Arizona behind the judge's chair. A handful of people waiting for other cases. A court reporter setting up her machine. I took a seat in the third row witness section, where the bailiff had told me to sit. I clasped my hands in my lap to stop them from shaking. Brianna was already there, at the defendant's table. She looked different. No makeup, hair limp, wearing a gray cardigan instead of her usual designer pieces. Her lawyer, a thin man with silver hair, was whispering something in her ear. She didn't look at me. I stared at the back of her head and waited. Then the doors opened. I turned, expecting another stranger. Another case. It was my parents. Mom in her Sunday dress. Dad in the sport coat he wore to weddings and funerals. They walked down the center aisle. And for one moment, one stupid, desperate moment, I thought they'd come for me. They walked right past my row. They sat down directly behind Brianna. Mom reached forward and squeezed Brianna's shoulder. Dad nodded at her lawyer. My mother turned her head. Our eyes met. Her expression was stone. All rise. The bailiff called. The Honorable Patricia Coleman presiding. The judge entered. A black woman in her late 50s, glasses perched on her nose, moving with the efficiency of someone who'd seen 1,000 cases just like this one. But she hadn't seen this one yet. She didn't know what my parents were about to do. Neither did I. The arraignment began routinely. Charges were read. Brianna pleaded not guilty, her voice small and trembling. Bail was discussed. Then her lawyer stood. Your Honor, we have 2 character witnesses who would like to speak on behalf of the defendant. Her parents, Richard and Linda Carter. Judge Coleman glanced at the prosecution. Any objection? No, Your Honor. Very well. Mrs. Carter, please take the stand. Mom walked to the witness box like she was approaching an altar. She placed her hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth. Then she looked at me. My daughter Brianna made a mistake. She began. She's not a criminal. She's a good girl who got in over her head. The prosecutor stayed silent. This was an arraignment, not a trial. Character statements were unusual, but not prohibited. And Opal. Mom continued, her voice hardening. Opal has always been jealous of her sister. She's vindictive. She's always held grudges. Opal is using this situation to destroy our family over money. Mom's voice cracked, not with sadness, but with manufactured outrage. My daughter Brianna doesn't deserve to have her life ruined because her sister is bitter and resentful. Dad took the stand next. His testimony was shorter, but no less devastating. Brianna was going to pay it back, he said. She told us so. Opal never gave her a chance. She went straight to the police without even talking to us first. That was a lie. I had talked to them. I had begged for a payment plan. But I couldn't speak. Witnesses don't get to interrupt. I sat in that courtroom, my parents' words hanging in the air like poison, and felt every eye turned toward me. The vindictive daughter. The family destroyer. The victim no one believed. Pause, more emotional, a slight edge of disbelief in the voice. Let me pause here. I need you to really hear what just happened. My mother stood in front of a judge, under oath, and called me vindictive for reporting a crime committed against me for $78,000 I didn't spend. My own mother. If you've ever felt betrayed by someone who was supposed to protect you, you know this feeling. Let me know in the comments. Have you ever been in a situation where your family chose the wrong side? I want to hear your story. And stay with me, because what the judge said next changed everything. Judge Coleman had been silent throughout my parents' testimonies. She hadn't interrupted, hadn't raised an eyebrow, hadn't given any indication of what she was thinking. Now, as Dad stepped down from the witness stand, she adjusted her glasses and looked at the documents in front of her, taking her time. The courtroom was so quiet I could hear the air conditioning humming. Mr. and Mrs. Carter, she said finally, her voice measured, almost conversational. Please remain standing. My parents exchanged a glance. Dad's hand found Mom's. I've heard your testimony. You believe your daughter Brianna made a mistake and deserves leniency. You believe your daughter Opal is acting out of vindictiveness rather than legitimate grievance? Mom nodded eagerly. Yes, Your Honor. That's exactly. I wasn't finished. Mom's mouth closed with a snap. Judge Coleman looked down at the file again. I could see the credit reports in there, the transaction records, the evidence Detective Ford had compiled. I see here that 7 credit cards were opened fraudulently. 2 personal loans. Total debt of approximately $78,000. She looked up. All in your daughter Opal's name. All traced to your home address. Brianna was going through a hard time. Mom started again. I didn't ask a question, Mrs. Carter. Silence. The judge set down the file. Removed her glasses. Folded her hands. I have one question for both of you. My heart stopped. The courtroom seemed to shrink. Everyone was watching. The lawyers, the court reporter, the bailiff, the strangers waiting for their own cases. Judge Coleman looked directly at my parents and asked the question that would change everything. Mr. and Mrs. Carter. Judge Coleman's voice was calm, almost gentle, like a doctor about to deliver a diagnosis. If you believe your daughter Opal is being vindictive for reporting this crime, if you believe she should have handled this privately within the family, I need to ask you something. The courtroom held its breath. At any point in the last 4 weeks, did either of you offer to pay off the $78,000 debt that your daughter Brianna created in Opal's name? The question hung in the air like a blade. Mom opened her mouth. No sound came out. Dad stared at the floor. 5 seconds passed. 10. 15. Judge Coleman waited. Mom started, stopped. Her hands were shaking. We don't have that kind of money. I didn't ask if you had the money. I asked if you offered. Silence. Did you offer a payment plan? Did you offer to co-sign a loan? Did you offer anything at all to help your daughter Opal? The one whose credit was destroyed, whose future was stolen, whose identity was used without her consent. Nothing. Did you even ask how she was doing? Mom's face crumpled. The polished facade shattered. Tears. Real tears this time. Not the performative kind she'd been coaching Brianna on. They streamed down her cheeks. Dad still wouldn't look up. Your silence is noted. Judge Coleman put her glasses back on. You've asked this court to show mercy to the daughter who committed fraud. But I see no evidence, none, that either of you showed mercy to the daughter who became her victim. I sat in that courtroom, surrounded by strangers, and felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Validation. Someone finally saw the truth. Mom was sobbing now. Not the gentle, sympathetic tears she'd produced while comforting Brianna. This was ugly, raw. The sound of someone whose mask had been ripped away. I just wanted to keep my family together, she choked out. Judge Coleman's expression didn't change. Mrs. Carter, A family is not held together by one member sacrificing themselves for another's crimes. It is held together by accountability, honesty, and equal treatment. She turned to Brianna. My sister hadn't moved since the question was asked. She sat frozen at the defendant's table, her lawyer's hand on her arm, staring straight ahead like she was watching her future collapse in real time. Miss Brianna Carter, you've entered a plea of not guilty. However, the evidence presented to this court is substantial. Credit card applications traced to your residence, transaction records matching your social media activity, text messages requesting sensitive personal information from the victim. Brianna's lawyer started to speak. Judge Coleman held up a hand. I am setting this case for trial. Ms. Carter will remain free on bail with the following conditions: no contact with the victim, mandatory check-ins with the probation officer, and surrendering of passport. She looked at Brianna directly. Ms. Carter, I strongly suggest you consult with your attorney about the benefits of a plea agreement. The evidence against you is compelling. The gavel came down. This court will reconvene in 6 weeks. As the bailiff called the next case, Brianna finally turned around. She looked at me, not with remorse, not with shame, but with hatred. Pure, undiluted hatred. And I realized something. My sister wasn't sorry for what she'd done. She was sorry she got caught. That was the moment I stopped grieving the relationship we used to have, because that relationship had never really existed. 6 weeks later, Brianna took the plea deal. I wasn't there for the sentencing. My lawyer said I didn't need to be. But Detective Ford called me afterward with the details. She pleaded guilty to identity theft and credit card fraud, Ford said. The mail fraud charge was dropped as part of the agreement. What's her sentence? 2 years suspended, 5 years probation, 200 hours of community service. A pause. And full restitution to you. $78,000 plus interest. I did the math in my head. At her income level, that would take at least 10 years. Maybe longer. What else? No contact order. She can't approach you, call you, email you, or contact you through third parties. If she violates probation, misses a payment, fails a check-in, anything, she goes to prison to serve the full 2 years. And her record? Felony conviction. It'll show up on every background check for the rest of her life. I sat in my apartment, phone pressed to my ear, trying to feel something. Triumph? Maybe relief? Justice? What I felt was exhaustion. Miss Carter, are you still there? Yeah, I said a little breathlessly. I'm here. You did the right thing. I know it doesn't feel like it, but you did. Does it get easier knowing you sent your own sister to? I stopped. Knowing you reported your own family. You didn't send her anywhere. Her choices did. Detective Ford's voice softened. Take care of yourself, Miss Carter. You've earned it. She hung up. I looked around my small studio apartment. The same 400 square feet of beige carpet. The same window facing the parking lot. But something was different now. I was different. 3 days after the sentencing, Dad called. I almost didn't answer. But something, curiosity, maybe, or that stubborn hope I couldn't quite kill, made me pick up. Opal. His voice was tired, older than I remembered. Can we talk? Just the two of us. We met at a coffee shop halfway between our houses. Neutral territory. He looked smaller in person, deflated, like someone had let the air out of him. I'm not here to apologize for your mother, he said, staring at his untouched coffee. She's not ready for that. Maybe she never will be. Then why are you here? He finally looked at me. Because I should have said something. At the house. At the court. He swallowed. I knew it was wrong. What Brianna did. What we were asking you to accept. I didn't know how to fix it. You didn't have to fix it, Dad. I said, my voice thick with unshed tears. You just had to stand next to me. Silence. I know, he whispered, his voice cracking. I know that now. We sat there for an hour. He didn't fully apologize. Not the way I needed him to. But he acknowledged what happened. He admitted he'd failed me. It wasn't enough, but it was something. I set my boundaries before I left. I won't be at any family events where Brianna is present. You can call me, but we're not discussing her. And Mom can reach out when she's ready to have a real conversation, not one where she's defending Brianna or blaming me. Opal, those are my terms, Dad. Take them or leave them. He nodded slowly. Okay, I can do that. I drove home alone. One relationship salvageable, one uncertain, one dead. That would have to be enough. 6 months after the trial, I got my first restitution check, $472. A fraction of what Brianna owed me. But it was something. Proof that consequences existed, that actions had weight. I deposited it into my savings account and watched the number grow. My credit score had climbed from 412 to 580. Still not great, but improving. Every month, the fraudulent accounts were being removed. Every month, I was getting a piece of myself back. At work, something unexpected happened. My boss called me into her office. I thought I was in trouble, but instead, she offered me a promotion. I heard about what you went through, she said. Not the details, just the broad strokes. Takes a lot of integrity to pursue something like that when family's involved. It wasn't about integrity. I told her honestly. It was about survival. That's the same thing sometimes. I got a raise, a new title, an office with a window. Small, but mine. The apartment with the balcony was long gone, but I found another one. Closing in 8 months. The down payment was almost ready. I still lived in my studio, still tracked every dollar, but the tracking felt different now. Less like survival, more like building. Less like hiding, more like growing. I had therapy every other week. A support group for identity theft victims once a month. Turns out there's a lot of us. Turns out family members are the most common perpetrators. I wasn't alone. I'd never been alone. I just hadn't known where to look. One night, I stood in my kitchen making dinner for myself, and realized I was humming. I couldn't remember the last time I'd done that. Healing isn't a straight line, but I was finally walking it. People asked me if I regret it. Pressing charges, losing my family, watching my mother cry in a courtroom and feeling nothing but vindication. The honest answer is sometimes. Some nights I still reach for my phone to text Brianna something stupid. A meme. A memory. A question only she'd understand. Then I remember. And the absence hits all over again. I miss the sister I thought I had. I miss Sunday dinners where I felt like part of something. I miss the fantasy of a family that put me first, even though that fantasy was never real. But I don't regret choosing myself. For 27 years, I was the easy one. The one who didn't need anything. The one who handled things so everyone else could fall apart. That Opal is gone. The Opal I am now has boundaries. Clear, non-negotiable boundaries. I don't share personal information with anyone, family or otherwise, without a reason. I don't accept guilt trips as arguments. I don't sacrifice my well-being so other people can avoid discomfort. And I don't confuse love with tolerance for mistreatment. My mother said I destroyed our family. Maybe she's right. But here's what I've learned. If a family only stays together when one person agrees to be destroyed, then it was never really a family. It was a system. And I was the load-bearing wall. The moment I stopped carrying, the whole thing collapsed. But that's not my fault. That's just physics. So if you're watching this and you've ever had to choose between keeping the peace and keeping your self-respect, I want to hear your story. Drop it in the comments. We're all in this together. And remember, you are allowed to stop being the easy one. Before I go, I want to share something I learned in therapy. My therapist asked me once why I thought Brianna did what she did. I said she was selfish, greedy, a bad person. She shook her head. Your sister isn't evil. She's broken in a specific way. Here's what I've come to understand. Brianna was the golden child who never developed her own identity. Our parents protected her so much that she never learned to handle failure, disappointment, or responsibility. When life got hard, she didn't have coping skills. She had shopping. She had denial. She had me. She used my identity because she didn't have one of her own. That doesn't make it okay. It doesn't make it forgivable. But it makes it understandable. And me? I was the invisible child. The one who learned early that my needs didn't matter. That asking for help was pointless. That independence was the price of survival. I gave Brianna my social security number because I never learned that I had the right to say no. Even to family. Especially to family. So, here's what I want you to take from my story. First, trust is earned, not automatic. Blood doesn't equal safety. Second, people who call you dramatic for setting boundaries are usually the ones who benefit from you having none. Third, protecting yourself isn't betrayal. It's not cruelty. It's survival. You are allowed to refuse to be used. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to walk away from people who only see you as a resource. Even if those people raised you. Even if those people share your blood. Even if those people call it love. That's my story. Thanks for listening. Thank you for staying with me through this whole story. If any part of it resonated with you, if you've ever felt invisible in your own family or had to make an impossible choice between peace and self-respect, I see you. Please share your story in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want more stories like this, hit subscribe and check the description for related videos. Take care of yourself. You deserve it.